about, his background in martial arts. That we talked a little bit about it, but very limited. But just with his background in business, his background in learning is what it felt like. His background in absorption of information was something that I have really never experienced before. I show a technique, he quietly reflects for a moment, and he does it perfectly. And I'm like, all right, let me teach you another one. Let me teach you another one. And I'm like teaching this guy, and I just told him today, we just did an hour and a half class, and he learned in an hour and a half when most people take to learn in a month or two. Like literally, like the amount of techniques, the amount of information, the amount of principles, and it's just like second nature for him. He's just learning it. And I'm like, this is crazy. So honored to be here, and I just can't believe it, because if we keep it at this rate, yeah, he may, I don't know, UFC or like cancel all this, whatever this is going on here at his house, these business videos and these live streams, and just open up your Jiu-Jitsu Academy and just choke people out for money. Sure, and I know Tai is really big on mentors. Man, in martial arts, you don't have a choice. No mentor, no progress. And I think that if more people would treat their lives the way dedicated martial artists treat martial arts, they would be so much more successful. Let me just kind of put it into perspective. What I am teaching Tai took 85 years for the Gracie family to evolve and perfect, essentially. And for me to, drive up here from Torrance to teach him a private class in his home, he is essentially bypassing the 85-year waiting line, essentially, to learn what will take, 6 months to a year, what took my grandfather 85 years to develop, so to speak. So talk about mentors. There's no greater example of the efficiency of progress that is measurable and essentially noteworthy in terms of real progress. It doesn't exist any more real than in martial arts. And I don't have, I have some business mentors. I have, because, we're, besides being a martial arts family, we very much are trying to expand jiu-jitsu as a global enterprise. We have about 115 licensed certified training centers. We have an online university called gracieuniversity.com that is putting jiu-jitsu online so people can learn through video streaming anywhere in the world. And there have been many influential people. Now, ironically, all of my mentors started off as students, and then once I realized, like Tai, that these guys are very successful, in their own mastery categories. They're black belts in their own categories. It's great to get to rub shoulders with them and get ideas, and there's just no telling what type of collaboration, what type of positivity, what type of progress can be made when, people of different mastery levels, different black belts, so to speak, collaborate and create new mastery opportunities for both the people involved.
Thank you. We'll have to do a live stream with you, maybe, teaching some stuff to our people.
Or Tai can teach you, and I'll just be his victim. Whatever.
Perfect.
Cool.
Thank you. Cool. We'll hang out because I have to talk to you after anyway. So.
Yes.
Yeah. Hello. Where's Jay? Charlotte can have Jay come out. Adrian?
All right, hello everybody. How are you?
Pleasure to meet you.
Yeah, awesome. Thanks for coming out today. You guys are in for a treat. I'm a little beat up now. A little jiu-jitsu to start the day. So, I'll give it a formal start, even though, there we go. What some new books. You guys are mixing up the books here. Can I grab that? So, welcome everybody officially now to today's private call, this advanced business call. We're talking on an amazing book. I'm very glad that you came here because I want to ask you a lot of stuff in person, and I know that those of you on the call have all kinds of questions. So, Jay, the way that I kind of look at this is that everything big, if you go back at any time, I mean, you can go back centuries, it's always, one of my mentors used to say, Tai, you don't want to be the first or the last to try a new idea. He says it's a little bit dangerous to be the absolute first. The people who started TiVo, Friendster, the people who started one of the first social networks, they don't profit quite as much as the second or third, MySpace or Facebook. But without a doubt, being in the first wave of disruption of any industry seems to be one of the highly correlated factors in doing something that, there's a good book. I don't know if you read this book by Mitch Cohen. It's called The Self-Made Billionaire Effect. There are a few researchers. They studied what they think's causative, / correlated with wealth creation, and they say it's the blockbuster idea, the iPhone that's in the hands of 25% of Americans. And so those are all some form or another of disruption. So maybe to start, and maybe I hope you haven't talked about this too much already with Maya, but disruption means a lot of stuff to different people. What's the most foundational understanding of that word and that concept? Is it being the absolute first? Is it always being contrarian? Or what would you say?
It's really that once you hear an idea, see something, the world cannot go back to the way it was. So one of the most basic examples, it's a fun example, is from the Bronze Age we were making knives. And as we figured out how to make better metal, innovation was making longer and longer knives and swords until you get to that scene in Indiana Jones with the Arab swordsman with the big scimitar and he's waving the thing. And Indy just pulls out the Smith & Wesson and shoots him.
Right.
That's disruption.
That's disruption. That's one of the great seeds.
Once you come back with a gun, the idea of that there's a guy in Japan making the perfect, samurai sword is irrelevant. Okay.
Right.
When Henry Ford made the car, we didn't say, I got a few more years in old Bessie. This horse thing's going to work. Okay. And what's different now is we're one click away from 6 billion consumers. You only have to be right for a nanosecond to make immense wealth. So what has changed in demographics and technology and interconnectedness to allow you to disrupt things that nobody thought were possible to change? And it doesn't take great wealth to do it. It doesn't take great connections nowadays. It really just takes two things, an idea and perseverance.
Mm-hmm.
And so the book, Disrupt You, is really about teaching people how to start thinking of themselves limitless.
Right.
Do you remember in high school when the science teacher said the universe is expanding? And
right.
That blew my mind because I could never understand what's it moving into. But once you wrap your hand around that, if that's all limitless, so are we. But we were trained and raised to believe that we have very specific limitations because our educational system was about conformity, so you could go work at a factory.
Right. The assembly line.
And then you'd give your life for 40 years for what?
Right.
So too many people give up on their dreams listening to people that gave up on theirs.
Right.
So all that you really have to suddenly start doing is saying, well, what happens if I try this and it fails? I can always go back and live life like everybody else. And once you realize that there's another way, that's your personal disruption. That's disrupting you. You can't go back. So I didn't have a real company job. So late in my career, when I was brought in by major corporations, Sony, EMI, Universal Studios, they were facing existential threats to their existence and needed to have an entrepreneur, somebody that could try to transform the company from the end. I mean, imagine EMI, that's the home of the Beatles and Pink Floyd and the Beach Boys, and one day Napster comes along, and there's nobody going to be buying round things at brick and mortar stores again. So do you just say, let's go home, we've been a company since Enrico Caruso for 100 years, let's just pack it in? No, I came along and I didn't have the answers. It's not like you know everything, but you don't have a fear of trying everything. So at the same moment in history where nobody would buy a single song for $1, there wasn't iTunes yet, we went out there and tried this idea of what would you pay for 10 seconds of a song we call a ringtone.
Oh, wow.
And did $1.6 billion the first year with ringtones. Couldn't sell a song.
So you were the favorite consultant for a long time.
Well, Ralph Simon pioneered it, a lot of people, but the idea of being open to every idea, if it doesn't work, you've learned what doesn't work.
Yeah.
And so there's so many examples in the book and in my life. I mean, one of my favorite is 3 guys when broadband came along. They had the killer, going to make a bunch of money. Online dating was always a still picture. And that picture could be 10 years old or 40 pounds ago, right? It's going to be live video. It's going to be real video. So they built a dating site called Tune In Hook Up, and they were going to be a hit. One minor problem. Nobody wanted to date those losers. But they looked at the data, and even though nobody was dating, people were sending all their friends to look at the loser's video to make fun of them. Go, look who's out there. Tons of people. Wow, people would want to look at these videos. Let's change the name of our company to YouTube.
Wow.
So some of your biggest companies really didn't start out on that path. But
So,
by
yeah, that's the
failing,
pivot.
they pivot. And so it's all part of the process. By going down a path that nobody else explored, you've gone farther into the woods to discover things that no one else saw. That's where value is created.
Yeah.
And then value capture is, how do you figure out how to hold on to the value that you've now realized and
Yeah.
unlocked? And that's where many businesses start
Yeah, I
falling
always
apart.
say, you know, if you're watching this, lots of people have created value through history, but never captured it.
Oh, yeah.
And primarily as a business, you know, Peter Drucker says you capture it it's not profit, even though that is a component. You capture it as the creation of a loyal customer. So naturally, and YouTube, for example, in your example, for many years didn't capture financially the value in their bank account until they sold to Google. And then these three guys sold for, I think it sold for about $1 billion.
$2 billion.
$2 billion. So the creation there is always around the customer, but there's a lot of people that create value that never create a customer. That's what happened in the music industry all of a sudden with piracy. The musicians were going, wait a second, are we really creating a customer? And they felt they weren't, so they weren't capturing it. But in all actuality, Joel Salatin used to tell me, Tai, the cream always rises to the top, meaning in any recession, in any big shift like the music industry, somebody's going to come along like you guys did and just say, ringtones.
There's always opportunity.
It's amazing. That's why don't read the paper too much. Paper's written by reporters who, if they knew how to make money, probably wouldn't be a reporter. I hope no reporters are here watching.
But you bring up a good point. Why did I write a book? There's so many business books out there. So I noticed that there were ones written from the outside by journalists that
Right.
say, here's what others did.
Yeah.
Okay? So you're removed from it. Then there's the, Jack Welch. I did one thing one way, and if you came out of the service the same year I did and could go back
Right.
in the time machine, you could learn from that. And here's, a common guy, just like everybody watching, that if I could go in and change giant industries, why can't you? And hear stories of others. A heart-wrenching story that's amazing. 14-year-old girl, junior high school, learns about neural networks and builds a little soccer game.
Okay.
A lot of kids do that. Nobody's scientific in their family. Mom comes home upset one day crying.
Builds a soccer game
On a computer.
On a computer. Okay.
Yeah. A little neural network,
Yeah.
thinking through things. And her mom comes home in tears because the mom's sister, the girl's aunt, has breast cancer.
Huh.
All of us would go, this is sad, that's horrible, what can I do? I'm a 14-year-old middle school girl. She says, what if I could take this technology and come up with a better way to detect breast cancer? Fast forward, by the time she's 15, it took her a year, and now what she created saves 40,000 lives a year.
Wow. At 15.
So makes you say, how are we wasting our lives?
Right.
What impact can each person? And if you name anything in history, it was all just started by one person with an idea.
Yeah.
And business is a lot about being the Pied Piper. If you have a dream that's big enough, you'll attract people to that flame, and then it gets a life of its own. And then you look back and you look at some of the great, brilliant people that you get to work with. And it's humbling, and that's really the story of Disrupt You, is all these people that weren't connected to money or power or this or that have changed the complete world and made it much smaller and much easier for the next generation.
Yeah. Now let's take some questions here. Let's see if I can. Can you move the little? Can you give me a refresh here, and we'll look. Yeah. One of the things that, as an entrepreneur, somebody watching this, I think that people forget that there's macro disruption, where you're doing nothing with your life, and then you're the next Reed Hastings. You come up with Netflix, right? Which is a definite disruption of the DVD and movie watching industry. And then there's also internal disruption, which I've seen in my businesses that I've started or invested in, where all of a sudden you go, we don't need to disrupt and switch the whole thing. We need to disrupt and knock out a new product hit a new segment of our audience, make something that's a more VIP version of what we have, or make a more mainstream version. So just keep that in mind, and I want to get your opinion on that. Let me read a few questions here as we get feedback. Are most disruptions calculated events? Warfare tools such as the gun, are they really accidents like penicillin? What's your opinion on somebody watching? Are they going to bump into these and be kind of open-minded, so you're just accident? Soap actually came that way. Or is it something, a process where you go, it's Monday, my business, I need more revenue, I need more profit, I need more creative employees. By Friday, I'm going to have disrupted the old way of doing things.
So it's always intentional, even if the source was unintentional. So give you a great example. It's World War II. The Japanese have Southeast Asia. We can't get any rubber. Okay, the Allies can't make tires and rain slickers, and the war effort needs rubber. So they spend money at all the great research universities to make synthetic rubber. And they eventually got something that had the same viscosity, had the same everything, just one problem, it wouldn't hold a shape. Okay? And millions were spent on this and tons of stuff. War's over. So that was an accident that made this stuff. But it took an entrepreneur to look at it and say, wow, people like touching it every time you give them a sample to work on it and play with it, and you can stretch it. So he hired some kids at Princeton on a weekend, put them in some eggs, took them to Toy Fair, and it's silly putty. Okay? 300 million eggs have sold before they came up with the use, which is that's how they hold tools in place on the space station so they don't fly around. So the discovery of it, you could say, was like the penicillin, whatever, but that wouldn't have been something that changed the toy market.
Right. It's the application can also be disruptive.
And so you can repackage things. You can do it from design and research. You can do it from packaging. There's a company that used to make motor oil in Quaker State, and they owned the market. And they had the biggest machinery to make the most so they could make it the cheapest. But Pennzoil made a plastic container that took up less shelf space so that the retailer could stock twice as many. So that meant twice as many fit in a box, so you bought twice as many. So the first couple of years, their sales skyrocketed until they bought out their competition.
So just disruption of packaging.
Just packaging. Yeah. You can disrupt by branding. I have a dear friend who started a comic book company, couldn't get noticed or arrested to save his life. So he licensed from Richard Branson named Virgin. Suddenly it's Virgin Comics. Everybody in Hollywood's licensing the rights to the various things to make movies. So you can do it from branding, from brand extension. So any piece of this, I mean, a Nobel Prize was given for a guy who lent out $27 and invented microfinance.
Right.
You know?
Oh, is that the Bangladeshi?
Yeah. And changed the way we look at the banking system, crowdfunding. I mean,
everything, anybody watching this, as you look at, it's a little bit like magic. As you look back at whether it be Plato or micro-lending, Reed Hastings with Netflix, you rarely go, I never could have thought of that.
Well, I call them thigh slappers. So one of the great things about reading Disrupt You is you hear from readers. I've heard from people in 141 countries. I'm totally humbled by that. But you get an idea, and I'll give you one that came across that I just go, why didn't I think that? You know those cheap Happy Meal watches, little digital watches that cost like 6 cents? Take one of those and put it on the lid of a pill bottle. Okay. Every time you close the bottle, it starts the countdown clock. Did you take your pill at lunch? I don't remember. Oh, it's been 4 hours. No, I didn't. Oh, it's been 4 minutes. Right before Jay interrupted me, I told you, right? The biggest problem with medication is efficacy because people don't follow the time and don't take it if they would take it. Now that we have national health care like most countries, what would that save society if everybody took their medicines the way they were? Billions and billions of dollars.
Yeah.
A Happy Meal watch and a pill bottle and a 6 cent difference. Okay? Yeah. So you can take things from different fields.
And again, that's a thigh slapper in the sense that we've been seeing these little watches forever. It just takes an entrepreneurial mind, a creative mind to go, let me find applications. This is awesome. Let's take another question. As an intrapreneur, so somebody working in another person's venture or another company's venture, what do you think is the best way to think and to tweak the industry into something of more value? So how is it different as an entrepreneur versus an intrapreneur?
So I have had 3 stints of major corporations that were on the precipice of extinction calling me in. And first of all, it's either the best job in the world, okay, or the worst one you'll ever have. And let me tell you the difference. If you're in a big company, the second you get in there, you can't work with any of your competitors, anything else. You can just work with the resources of that company.
Yes.
And in many times, if you're not empowered,
Yes.
you're dead. So the digital camera was invented in 1975 by Kodak.
Huh.
But if you were the executive in charge of the digital camera, and I'm in charge of film with 80% profit margin, you're going to try to cannibalize my business.
Right.
I'm going to screw you and make sure you don't succeed.
Yeah.
The hubris was Kodak thought if they stomped on it long enough, it would die, as opposed to another company will rise up and put Kodak out of business. So what you have to make the bet is, a lot of people believe if they duck and cover in their nice corporate job and their nice safe job, that they have security and they'll last. But if you know your company's going down the wrong path,
Yeah.
the company is doomed like the dinosaurs, okay? They're going to go out of business. So you have one choice. You can say, how long can I ride till the ice age and extinction? Or rise up, say, this is what we should do, here's the change, go to the most senior person you get attention to, and one of two things will happen. You'll piss off your supervisors either way, but you'll either get promoted or fired.
Yeah.
And then when you're that rocket ship being noticed, then go for it. If
Yeah.
you're a succeed, you've changed the company, your life, your wealth, your trajectory. And if you failed, you know what? You got out of a company that you knew was failing anyway.
Right.
So what did you lose?
Right. You
So
just nipped it in the bud
In one of
before it
my
happened.
situations doing that, I was empowered. I literally remember being hired by Ken Berry, and he had 11,000 people. And I go, Ken, I'm not a music guy, right? And he goes, I have 11,000 music guys. I don't have a future, right? So anytime I didn't understand the core business, I could ask and
Right.
bounce around. But I came with this fresh perspective of, why not try this? Why not try that? Why not, I didn't care about getting a video on MTV. I didn't care about radio play. That was dying.
Yeah.
On the other hand, I had another situation of a company with 160,000 employees where I reported to the chairman, and there wasn't the ability to empower what we were doing.
Right. So
There
they
were-
just weren't ready.
There were just too many silos that you can't play with my baseball and you can't play here. And that company went from being a $100 billion company to, I think it's about a $25 billion company today.
Wow.
They lost $75 billion of shareholder value because they wouldn't
Listen.
embrace change.
Awesome. That's a great answer. Let's see here. Give me a few different ones to choose from. All kinds of good questions. What do you think? Somebody asked practical question. What do you think about visualization? Do you think that's part of the disruption pattern? A lot of people talk about meditation, visualization. I was talking to an interesting guy who started a big charity yesterday, and he says he likes to write, and this increases his creativity. What about some practical things like that? Visualizing, writing. What do you think that makes people more creative to come up and catch the next big
So do you
disruption?
want to talk about digitalization or visualization first?
What I mean in the sense of somebody's watching this, they go, yes, I want to disrupt either as an entrepreneur or as an entrepreneur. And they want something practical. Do you wake up in the morning and set aside 15 minutes a day and you visualize
100%.
Some disruption, or do you write out journal? What do you see doing? Do you look at BuzzFeed for new memes and trends?
There's a science and study, and I cover in Disrupt You, called effectuation. And what that really is imagine yourself in that winning state. Get yourself. Have you ever heard a good idea from somebody in a bad mood? No. You're shut down to opportunity, to openness, whatever. Oh my God, I lost my job, the world sucks, whatever. There could be billions of dollars of opportunity around you, you're locked down. But if you wake up with, I know today can be better than yesterday, and I have the power to make it so. As tree-huggy, pseudoscience as that sounds, that will set you on the path of thinking about opportunities as opposed to obstacles.
Yeah.
So you start looking at, oh my God, I was in traffic today. This traffic sucks. Oh my God, that's a problem. How do we solve traffic? What's different about the world than 10 years ago? Wait, the cell phone company knows my phone is in my car and knows your phone's in your car. If we told you to go left and me to go right, we could solve traffic. That's the basic of Waze.
Yeah, Waze, the great
So-
Israeli app. Yeah.
So one of the exercises I ask people to do, it's very simple. I can guarantee you more deal flow than anybody in Silicon Valley, any VC in the world. All you have to do is write down 3 problems that you have in your life, just today. Just come up with 3 problems. I was stuck in traffic, I forgot to take my medicine, okay?
Okay.
Okay? Do that for a month. The first day it's easy. But to do it for a month, you really start having to pay attention of what were you assuming was immalleable. That's just the way it is. There's always traffic, right? I can't do anything about it. Oh, I forgot to take my medicine. That's not a problem. Oh, yes, that is a problem, right? To get 90 ideas. So at the end of the month, you have 90 ideas that are problems. Now just sort them by what affects the most people and what are you passionate about, because it's going to take you a few years. And you now have your billion-dollar idea.
So somebody watching, make sure I love practical stuff like that, and I feel like what happens is, like you said, you should go through that process. The first day it's easy, the first week it's easy. 2 weeks in, all of a sudden, like you said, you're confronted with things like, it's too hot, you know, my thermostat. Actually, one of mine is the air conditioner is loud, right? And eventually, if you live here in the house, you just like, oh, it's a nice house, and you avoid it. But then you start going, can we make air conditioners that are more quiet? Hotels, if you sleep next to the ice machine, they're loud. All these little things are opportunities for somebody to make a $10 million company, $100 million company.
I'll give you one just out of what you just said that somebody did. We all talk about the Internet of Things. That's things hooked up to the Internet. What does that mean? It sounds so nebulous. And the first generation of things that are out there are like, we'll let you know when your eggs are spoiled. They just seem stupid, okay?
Right.
Hotels. A hotel's got 1,000 rooms. You know the grill that the air conditioner blows the air out, you know, that everybody have? You have the vents, we all do. What if that was Bluetooth and motion detector? So put a little electronics. If nothing moves in that whole hallway on the floor and that whole room, it shuts them. What does that save in energy?
Oh, yeah. Immense amount of money.
Billions of dollars across the thing. And if anybody's coming down, it opens, okay? Simple. What's that cost? It pays for itself. You can do the math and go to any hotel and go, wow, this will solve another. I heard from a reader this week, and I can't out his idea, but he was doing the 90-day thing, and he was really proud of it. But he had a family tragedy that happened, right?
Yeah.
And he had to run and stop and drive to another city and deal with something in his family. And that was his winning idea.
Yeah.
During it, he realized, wait a second, a lot of people have to face the same thing and da-da-da. And he goes, I now know what my business is because I couldn't find a solution to this problem that came across me. And rather than be frustrated, oh my God, here's this giant problem, I go, oh my God, here's this amazing opportunity.
Yeah.
So if you have problems out there, congratulations, you're way ahead of those people that were born with a silver spoon. And that's why you see most of the world's wealth right now isn't being passed down.
Right.
Okay? It's being
Bill Gates isn't
created.
Yeah.
The average, you know, self-made billionaire today, you know, is doing it with no relationship to any means of capital.
This is the first time in history, I think last year or this year on the Forbes list, that people who did not inherit money are outnumbering the people who inherited money. In the history of planet Earth, for the most part, wealth has been passed on very, you know, linearly through families, and it hasn't been passed on always.
And think about it for a second. Your phone's connected to 6 billion people.
Yeah.
You only have to be right for a nanosecond to become a billionaire.
Yeah.
I mean, I created an app that, you know, 100 million people use.
Wow.
And you go, that's a lot of people, right? It's just mind-blowing. And it wasn't some, you know, it gets a certain life of its own. And so you're able to take your idea to the marketplace for less capital, quicker, and more interconnected.
And really less risk, because I had a guy, Neil Patel, on here earlier this month, and he's built about 4 large businesses. And he says his first one, he made the mistake. He spent 1 year and $1 million, his first $1 million in capital he ever raised, and he spent it on an idea that he didn't test. It wasn't kind of a lean startup approach. And at the end of the year, nobody wanted it. And he wasn't in the, and he says now he'll never make that mistake. Now he looks at problems that people tell him that he has, and he follows more of this disruption pattern.
So I tell entrepreneurs something that sounds counterintuitive, and I was judging a competition last night. Your goal is not to nurture your idea and bring it out to the market. Your goal is to kill that idea. Find everything wrong with it so you can say this is the dumbest idea in the history of ideas.
Yeah.
Go find 10 potential users of it, not relatives that go, oh, Johnny did a good idea. Somebody would actually pay money for it to say, this sucks and here's why. Because if you can do that all in your head and on a whiteboard, you're not burning cash. And you're not running down your clock to then spend all your money, have it go out there and go, oh, I wish I would have asked that question 10 months ago. But when you come up with that zombie idea, The Walking Dead, the idea that can't be killed by anybody that you talk to, then throw money at it.
Yeah, that's the blockbuster. You get some momentum. Awesome. Let's go. My question below concerns a problem I notice in online business that I'm solving. Can you scroll up here? I missed the first part of the question. I'm sorry, down. What do you think is the next disruption in the energy sector?
Oh, so I'm huge when you look at the changes in solar. So let's just go through some basic facts.
Yep.
If you take 250 square miles of Earth, so just imagine the middle of Nevada that nobody's doing anything, and that was just covered with solar, just that. That's more energy than we use on planet Earth in a day.
Really?
Okay?
Wow.
Now, we now have solar paint coming out, which will be commercially available within the next 2 years. That means you just paint the outside of your structure, put the leads onto it, and you're creating energy.
You're saying your whole exterior of your home is now a solar collector.
Or the roof, or whatever you want to cover with it. It's that straightforward. When we now start saying that the challenge won't be cheap solar, you have printers that can print solar collectors at home.
Huh.
Just the way
3D
you print
printing.
paper.
Yeah.
Very, very simple. And it's actually just 2D. So you're going to have solar wallpaper, you have transparent windows that are actually solar collectors. You know, all the heat that we're feeling right now, we're not capturing or using.
Oh, yeah.
Okay? And at the same time, we're using fossil fuels to air condition the inside. Why not use the heat to air condition? I mean, real simple. And batteries. So you see Elon Musk and Tesla's really focused on the storage of it. In the book, if I could tell you one fun story, what if I told you you could use frozen chickens as solar batteries? You'd say I'm crazy. Now let me describe it to you. So a European grocery store chain put in solar, and they reduced their energy, and it was really great for the daytime. But at night, there's no sun, and you have your freezers, and how are you going to get the energy for that? So they realized on the day they had enough energy coming in that they could lower their freezer temperature way below where they needed to be. It doesn't affect the food. If you're frozen at 30 degrees, you're frozen at 20 degrees, you're frozen at negative degrees. Yeah. Then at night, when nobody's opening the freezers, it's slowly warming up because the energy is stored in those frozen chickens.
Yeah.
But by morning, it never reaches the critical temperature, and then the sun's up again and repeats the cycle. So using frozen food as a battery.
Right.
That's innovation. That's disruptive. And now they've reduced their energy use by 90%.
Wow.
Walmart, one of the leaders in creating renewables, and I'm not a spokesperson for them or anything, they share all that technology free with any competition because they realize it's better for society.
Yeah. Powerful.
Great question.
Somebody said, wow, that was a great practical idea. A little bit too fast. What do I go up one more? What do you think about a single person creating massive disruption of a huge industry? Or is it generally more of a team? Is it the myth of the solo person? By the way, all those watching this on the live, you're getting access to stuff. No one else is getting access to this. You're gonna see a version of this on YouTube, but it's not people getting to ask questions. So I consider myself lucky to be here answering these, and hopefully, not sure we'll get to everybody's question, but I'm gonna try to get to most of the ones. What do you think on that? Should people be going at this by committee, or is it the solo mad scientist that pulls off the disruptive ideas?
So I don't think you can name a single public company with no employees. So you have to learn to scale, and it's tough for the entrepreneur because what happens is they know that they could do X number of those jobs better than the people that they're bringing in.
Yes.
So you're the A student and pretend you can only hire C students.
Yes.
You can do the job better than any one C student. But if you hire 10 C students, they can get a lot more done than one A student.
Yes.
And you have to get over that, and that's management and learning how to manage people. And I'll give you, because you brought it up, here's my 2 rules for anybody that's reported to me in the past 20 years. The first thing I tell them is, you don't work for me, I work for you. Your job is to tell me what you need to do your job. My responsibility is to get it for you and get out of your way. So if you start thinking more of a flat management style, it's not so much a team. You're still setting the agenda, but you're getting people that are better at each skill set than you could possibly be. The second one is counterintuitive. If you work for me for a year and you do not make a mistake, I will fire you. And the reason is we're trying to go where we haven't been before. If you're playing it safe,
Yeah.
you will fail.
Yeah.
All the pivots, all the great businesses that we think of stumbled upon what worked by crawling through the glass and shards of what didn't.
Yeah.
So
Sandberg, that Sheryl Sandberg that worked for Mark Zuckerberg, she made a big mistake. I forget what it was specifically, lost millions of dollars, and Mark Zuckerberg the next day wrote her an email and said, good, now I know we're going so fast that we're breaking stuff, which is what I want to do.
Exactly.
All right, next question. So somebody asked, I get this question a lot. It'd be interesting to get your opinion. What trends do you see emerging? And I think maybe the better question is, are there any major areas of human life that aren't disruptive? I feel like there's trends everywhere, but do you see trends maybe a little more in tech, a little more in energy, or would you say, no, if you like music, you could disrupt music. If you like, philanthropy, there's disruption there. If you like finance, if you like construction, if you like food, do you think it's real industry specific?
So I'll start with the macro. So I have two answers to that. Play a game with me for a second?
Yeah.
Okay. And those at home, play along. I don't care dollar amounts of what you earn.
Okay.
But what percent of your income, percentage, do you spend on digital? Just pull a number.
So you would say, is this including digital entertainment? And let's say 15%.
15%. There's people will say 2%, 5%, whatever. Yeah. What if I would now tell you I can convince you that you spend the majority of your income on digital? Okay.
I'd probably believe you.
Let's define digital.
Yeah.
Is a mortgage physical?
Right.
Is rent physical? Is health insurance physical? Is credit card debt physical? Is energy bill? Is phone bill? You start seeing what I'm saying?
Yeah.
So the world's going from physical things that we ship and store and move to the interconnected.
Yes.
So the largest transportation company in the world, Uber, owns no cars.
Yeah.
The largest retailer in the world, Alibaba, owns no inventory.
Yeah.
The largest media company in the world, Facebook, creates no content.
Yes.
Okay? You're starting to see a pattern here. The largest hotelier has no
Airbnb.
hotels, Airbnb.
Yeah.
And number two isn't one of the hotel chains, okay? It's hotels.com
Yeah.
or Travassi. So you start realizing that it's about data.
Yeah.
So big data and using it in novel ways. And now you can say what sector gets impacted and where's the most new opportunity for somebody, to come in. Well, self-driving vehicles don't just change making of cars, but they change what you do in a car.
Yeah.
Apple and Google aren't fighting to make an autonomous vehicle because they want to make cars. They're going to have a captive audience for delivering advertising, entertainment, food, everything.
Yeah.
I just literally did a 14-hour drive from Oregon down here for the sole purpose of pretending how it would be different if the car was autonomous.
What was the big thing?
There were a lot of things.
Read more?
It would tell you the town that's coming up, what restaurants to make
Right.
sense, what this or what must-sees, what other friends have done.
landmarks, yeah.
It will absolutely change international travel back to domestic travel. The world's getting less safe, and yet the idea of driving to Yellowstone, if you're not driving, you're playing video games, watching movies, sleeping, eating, making love, it will change the road trip completely. So you start seeing new businesses and opportunities. 3D printing. 3D printing isn't just about making things that already exist. Prosthetics for kids. You could never afford them because they grow too fast. Now they can print their own, kids that are missing limbs. Tons of different innovations. Somebody just came out with this week. If anybody wants to send me one, it's my favorite toy of the week. A 3D printer that prints in gummy bear. Okay?
Printing candy.
So imagine taking your kids out to a movie, whatever the character is, here's candy for everybody that looks like it. I mean, just cool, whimsical things, but there's tons of opportunity. The Internet of Things that we talked about. I could go on and on. The pace of change, we live in an era of endless innovation. And so, unless you learn how to disrupt, you'll get run over by the pace.
Yeah.
Because somebody else is paying attention.
So it's not just to answer this question, it's digital is the interconnectedness using data, whether it be crowdsourcing or what you would call creating businesses with network effects. So Uber has made a lot of money for this Travis guy and for the shareholders because it has allowed this network of drivers. And Uber's pretty cool because a lot of people,
TaskRabbit is another one. I used TaskRabbit the other day. I needed something picked up. What's the one, Maya? What's the one you like? Postmates or something? She was sick and she needed some echinacea picked up at Eckerd's or something. She just calls. Somebody goes, picks it up, brings it. So it's like Uber plus TaskRabbit.
And Uber, when it's autonomous, will be doing the same thing.
Yeah.
But here's what people miss: the real disruption of Uber.
Yeah.
Uber has 1 million drivers now.
Yes.
Okay. All of whom report to a piece of software.
Yes.
They've never met their supervisor, never met their boss. They have no means for promotion.
Yeah.
They report to Skynet.
Ah, there you go.
So
Skynet, I love it.
So we will look back at this time as the first time that humans are working for a piece of software.
Yes.
They're employed by a piece of software. They're interviewed, they're hired, they're paid by a piece of software, all digital.
Yeah.
So in the earlier example, not only are our things becoming digital, but our boss could be digital.
Yeah.
And you're now going to see that go across many industries. So where people thought factory workers lost their jobs to disruption, white collar
is going to lose, yeah. That's why I tell people, watch this. One of the reasons that I tell people to be in these programs is there is, the universe, you have either entropy or you have the injection of energy and something builds. And that's it. There is no status quo. So if you're doing something and you go, this is going to hum along pretty much like it's been doing, and I'm going to live pretty well like I've been living for the last 10 years, it's probably not going to happen that way, primarily because entropy is on an even faster cycle, because not only are there so there's an upside. I can reach, I just checked the stats, 1 billion people. I'm sorry, not 1 billion. My videos have been played since January this year 1 billion times.
Wow.
100 to 200 million people have seen them now. So there's an upside to it. That you couldn't have done that 100 years ago. The downside is somebody else can do it pretty easily too. The videos, most of them I've shot. Now you see a higher quality camera shot here, but with this phone, that means anybody who has $400 or $500 is now a competitor. So the only way that I sleep good at night is knowing that most people are lazy. Most people are not going to watch this call. Most people don't read.
Can I tell you how lazy they are?
Yeah.
In the U.S., 42% of college graduates never read another book.
Oh, it's...
This is mind-blowing. You want to know why is your career not going? Why is your business not going? Would you go to a doctor my age who hadn't learned anything since med school?
Yeah.
So 30 years out of med school. You go, wait a second, he doesn't know the latest drugs, the latest techniques. There's no way.
Yeah.
You'd go, oof, that's a witch doctor, okay? Yeah. People are going, woe is me. I lost my job.
Yeah.
No, you didn't lose your job like you lose your keys. You gave it away.
Yes.
You gave it away to somebody who got up early and read what's happening in the world.
Yes.
You have equal access to knowledge, and by the way, that means equal access to knowledge to somebody who lives in a country where we make $2 a day.
Yeah.
They're now competing with you.
Yeah.
Okay? So it is either the worst time or the best time.
Yeah.
But as I said earlier,
As was it Dickens? It was the best of times, and it was
worst.
if you're a driver, yellow cab, it's the worst of times. By the way, no hate to any yellow cab drivers. I am the greatest disruption I've ever seen that makes me dance for happiness is cab companies be put out of business. Any monopolies of just such horrible service. So it's a horrible, people say, oh, it's so bad if you're a cab driver. Well, go work for Uber or Lyft. You're not out of a job. The job just switches, and hopefully it's for the better. I'm oversimplifying, but let's take some more questions here. Hold that. I don't want to interrupt you. You have so much. I don't want to disrupt the disruptive. Maybe we can work it into this. I want to get to everybody. All right. Let's talk about. Go up a little bit here. 2 quick ones. Okay. Or not 2 quick ones. Two ones. Food industry, food, and music. I get these a lot.
Okay.
What are we thinking?
I'll hit both of them. Let's just talk about supply side of food. Of the food that made it from the farm all the way to the grocery store shelves,
Yes.
40% goes into the dumpster. Let that sink in.
Yeah.
Completely inefficient. Local economy, sharing economy, better ways to figure out how to do that farm to table quicker. When we have that guy gone to jail for letting poison, salmonella, peanut butter going out. Our food supply is very interconnected.
Yes.
A lot of ways to improve that using big data and everything to get local things local. If I had more time, I'd explain excess capacity and how that can reduce prices. Tremendous opportunities that I see people doing all the time. On the music industry, my heart's there. I've run most of the world's music companies at one time or another in the digital space. The challenge is understanding the difference between a business and an art form.
Okay.
So if you love music, you can make a living performing music. If you're trying to say, how do you become a multi-millionaire in music, it's a different
Yes.
thing. Music has been a loss leader for retail for more than half a century.
Yes.
The difference of the power or the impact, we're listening to more music than ever, but value isn't being captured by the songwriter.
Yeah.
You know, the kid of the dead celebrity doesn't make a lifetime living off of royalties anymore.
Yes.
So that has changed, but you're now going to see music be a loss leader again for other services. Everybody
Yes.
wants you in their cloud, getting their phone. So music's going to be bundled with other things as a value add.
Yeah, so if you're a musician, let's say something very similar to music, an actor, okay? A lot of people in this town, especially here, Hollywood, Beverly Hills, are going broke as actresses or actors, even if they get roles. But then you see somebody like Jessica Alba becoming a billionaire. You see Dr. Dre becoming a billionaire with Beats by Dre. So one thing that you can do, in my opinion, as a musician, is you can put together a team of people. Maybe you're the talent, but you build your own company that manages these other disruptive innovations, selling a specific product. You know, Oprah Winfrey, one of the big turning points in her life was having a mentor who said, do you just want to be the talent, or do you want to own the production company? And she said, had I not listened to him and owned the production company that then made money in many things, Oprah made money in all kinds of things, she would not be one of the wealthiest people in the world. All right, let's get it. Let's go down here. So many good questions. Keep coming down a little bit more. What do you think of a business an app or website that would partner baby boomers looking to sell their businesses with those who want to buy them? There's so many. The average age of an entrepreneur is rising to the point of being ready. I can actually answer this, and I want to get your opinion real quick. I mean, I'll give mine real quick. I want to let you have more time to talk than me. My friend in San Diego has started a fund, and all he's doing, he's gotten money from various investors and institutions, and he's just buying companies that are doing $1 to $3 million a year EBITDA. So medium size, maybe $10, $15 million companies. He's buying them, applying his skill as an internet entrepreneur, and he says it's a buyer's market because no one's buying, because everyone's 65 selling these. He bought a fence company. He likes to buy boring businesses. So my answer would be anything where you find needs and you connect people is an opportunity. What would you say?
So what you basically did is something that used to be a very one-on-one, go to a business broker, get somebody to sell it the same way real estate, and then you look at what crowdfunding in real estate has done, right? Just taking that $13 trillion domestic industry and turned it upside down. Great idea. I haven't heard it before. It's a natural. My suggestion would be learn and master it in one geography,
Yes.
and then raise the money to scale and go national.
Yes.
But great idea.
Just conquer a niche. How much time do we have, by the way?
Whatever you need.
Okay. Be careful when you say that with me. I like this.
I brought the sleeping bag.
You have so much good stuff. I'm
Staying here till the book's #1 in the U.S. Made it #1 overseas, but let's make it in the U.S.
Yeah, we're gonna have some of this on YouTube to make sure that we get hundreds of thousands, maybe millions of
And
people.
I have a present for your listeners.
Awesome.
So if anybody reaches out to me at JSamit on Twitter or my website,
on Twitter, yep.
and you'll have that on your stuff, jsamit.com. There's a companion 40-page workbook to help you go through that 90 ideas and
Yes.
and disrupt yourself. That helps you really flush out with exercises how to get the most out of the book.
Okay.
Reach out to me. Anybody that mentions you in their email, I will send the workbook to them for free.
Awesome. And you guys, I said I was going to give this. This is going on YouTube, some of it, not all of it. You guys are getting the only people getting the full on, and you're the only people getting to ask the questions. Okay. I'm a recent graduate of Princeton.
Hey, my son went there.
Awesome. Applying to law school. Where's the disruption in law going to be?
Well, it's actually already happening. So in a couple things. The idea that you go to law school, they recruit you to the firm, you work up like a slave for years and you make partner doesn't exist, because people could stay lawyers a long time, into their 60s or 70s, and there's not. So there's massive consolidation in that industry. Software has to solve it. So you're going to see people solving software for settlements, software for, think of LegalZoom, for basic contracts.
Rocket lawyer.
To start minimizing the friction that's built up in the system. We're creating a surplus of lawyers and end up with, you know, patent trolls and class action lawsuits and a bunch of stuff. So what I think will very quickly happen eventually is the tipping point will change, where the laws won't enable the amount of litigation that we presently have, because it is thwarting innovation, it is killing jobs, it is stifling. We're the most litigious country on earth, and we're slipping in our rankings because of it.
Do you think that the court system could solve the backlog by having some kind of judicial, minor judgments being done eventually? I'm sure it'll be AI and algorithms at some level.
Right now there's no automated process to get people to the table. You know, almost everything settles. So you're going to see a lot in the space.
So cool arbitration software maybe and things like that.
Absolutely. And internally in law firms, a lot of stuff that used to be done by the junior lawyers and the research and all that is being automated. You know, there's nobody go through the library and find that case. There's, oh, here's the case, and you know, here's the case law on it, and boom, boom, boom. So you're already seeing it, and it's becoming much more efficient. Everything becomes more efficient with access to data. And you'd be more likely to take a settlement if I showed you 16 other cases that were similar that settled at that price, to feel that you were representing your client right, or that you, the client, that's the best you're going to do. So
this stuff is gold.
It's slightly biased. I got a full scholarship to law school, didn't go. My parents didn't talk to me for a few years, so
My study?
I disrupted my family life.
You not only disrupt. What do I think? Let's see. So let's talk about this process. Step away for 1 second from specific disruptions. Immersion. As an entrepreneur, somebody, and you, of course, have worked in multiple ventures. How do people find the work-life balance so they're not just immersing themselves in disrupting and doing the next thing at all time? Do you think this is a
very important question?
Can you get addicted to this? Become a workaholic?
We can all choose how we live our lives, and that's one of the earliest things. The first third of Disrupt You is really about mapping out, what do you want to get out of life? Right? If you're a woman and you want to have kids, you can't wait till you're 50 to make that decision. Okay? There's a clock ticking. Okay? If you want to have a family, if you want to have things, so if you don't know where you're going, you won't get anywhere. So if you can map out, here's the balance that's important to you. So much for your religion, for your family, for, you know, charity, whatever that is, and do it accordingly. I wanted more than anything in life not to be financially successful. I wanted to be a good father. And so when I had my early company, I ran it out of my home till my kids went to school so I could be with them every day. And Daddy had a game when the phone rings, who can be quiet the longest, because we pretended it was an office, right? So I had that balance. When they were older and I would go do something cool, I'd pull them out of school so they could experience that cool thing, because I believed that would shape them more. I thought seeing the world was important. You know, one son's, I think, been to 50 states, the other to 49. But I made a conscious choice of what was important to me, and I sacrificed. There were opportunities of, would I live overseas, would I live here? And I had to say, no. I'll have one shot at doing this right with the kids for a certain number of years till they're grown-ups. And now I'm more proud of what they've turned into than any of my business successes.
Steve Ballmer was asked this question. It was right after he retired from being the CEO of Microsoft. And he had a real practical answer. He said, I made a spreadsheet. And I said, how much time do I need to spend with my kids so that they don't look back and go, I had the worst father ever? And he said, I just stuck to a schedule. I think that people
underestimate the value of consistency in these things. So, for example, I was just tweeted about, you know, you got to stay healthy while you're an entrepreneur. And I've gone through that, and I've seen a lot of people get in that situation where you work so hard, you lose your health, and it's hard to get back. And so you just allocate. You can use an Excel spreadsheet. Take it straight from Steve Ballmer. He did pretty well for himself. And you end up getting, I call it KSE strategy. K is knowledge. That's why I do these talks. You've got a lot of knowledge that people watching this that I don't have. So you gather knowledge, then you create strategy, which is different than a plan. A plan is very linear and never happens. Your plan is, first I do this, this. We all know in the realities of life, strategy is more like a wartime back and forth. If this doesn't work, then I move to this. And that's what you have to do on knowing the work-life balance. You know, pick a time every day, you work out 45 minutes. As Bruce Lee said, I did not fear the man who practiced 1,000 kicks, but I did fear the man who did practice one kick a day for 1,000 days. What if you need a big investment and big capital, which you don't have to do this disruption? You talked on
Great
this.
question. So I've raised $600–800 million for startups in my career.
Yeah.
It's a lot of money.
It's a lot of money.
And I'm different than a VC. I haven't had an investor lose yet with me.
Wow.
Yeah, so different thing. I only bet on crooked games, ones that I know I can affect the outcome. You know, I always ask the question when anybody wants an investment, why me? If I can't answer why me, why I'm the best person to move the thing, take money from somebody else.
Yeah.
But here's what you do. So the amount of VC capital from 2014 to 2015 doubled.
Yeah.
Okay, $40+ billion are out there. That is now being eclipsed by crowdfunding.
Yes.
So there's more capital. There's no excuse to capital. Everybody has to raise it. There's a process. But start thinking about it differently. That VC, that angel, whoever you're getting the meeting with, they want to give you money.
Yes.
That is their job. The only thing stopping them from giving them money is the stupid stuff that comes out of your mouth.
Yes.
So don't say the stupid stuff. What a lot of people don't understand, and I get so frustrated, they'll give a pitch. I'm coming out with shoes. You know, there's 6 billion people. That's 12 billion feet.
It's like the Ollie G glove.
Like, who cares, okay?
Yeah.
Focus on something that's attainable and real. When you raise money, it's the only time in your life where you get to write all the questions on the test. Okay? I think the CEO's name should begin with the letter J. I think his last name should rhyme with damn it, okay? And you can write this test where the only person that could win is you. So, if you take Groupon, a business model I never believed in, and I called it Grouponzi, but he followed the right way to raise money, which is he went after Chicago, one market,
Yes.
proved it in one market, and said if I had this much money, I could then go national or worldwide. So figure out what's a measurement that makes it look like you have traction, and the money will follow.
Yeah. Yeah, you know, it's a little bit like Genghis Khan. You go and you conquer one, you get market share, if you want to use business terms. You get market share in one area. Peter Thiel's a big believer in somewhat monopoly level. Facebook starts as a monopoly in Mark Zuckerberg's room. 2 or 3 of guys, they want to meet people at Harvard, boom. Then it moves to 60% market share, but only in one place, at Harvard University. Dominates there. And by the way, as this is going on, there's MySpace out there, which was the 800-pound gorilla. Actually, some of my friends here in LA started MySpace, but Zuckerberg was like Genghis Khan, and he was coming for them. And he raised capital in each of those stages, a little bit of capital. One guy put in $1,000, and best $1,000 he ever invested in his life. And then he went to just colleges.
Just Ivy League first.
Yeah, just Ivy League. And then I remember, so I dropped out of college, and I remember for a brief second going, maybe I'm going to go back to college so I could get on Facebook. Because it was kind of cool to be on it. It was prestigious, and you had to have an @edu email. So then in the last stage, and this is why I say be very careful about listening to the news reporters. Not that they're purposely trying to do anything. They only report on the last stage. Books like this, the reason I say read this is where you get the full story of how you really do this. So good question. Let's keep going here down. For those of you, if it's buffering on your side, don't worry, we'll have the recording out here.
I recently became interested in positive psychology. What is the next disruption in psychology and/or mental health? Excuse me. And somebody said in the financial planning market. So 3 things we've got. Well, we've got mental health, social work, and then we have financial planning. You alluded to this guy who did microfinance, really a combination of all those that won a Nobel Prize. He was out of Bangladesh.
Yeah.
So what do you see in those? Mental health, social good, and finance.
So I'm not an expert in those categories, but here's what I can tell you. There are now the ability to take larger pieces of data and come up with new solutions. So the practical example is, if anybody that wears a Fitbit or an Up or any of these things, it is the largest sleep study in the history of mankind.
Yes.
It knows how many hours and what those results are, and diet and weight loss and everything. And maybe they can crunch the numbers and say, if you're 50, don't sleep 7 hours, you should only sleep 5.
Yes.
Or something else. So I think you're going to see less guesswork
Yes.
and more data driving solutions for people. And anything that you can then solve those problems at scale is a great business opportunity. So I don't know enough about the subject matter.
Yeah.
But obviously anything that hasn't changed for 100 years of how they do it is ripe for disruption.
Well, now you're an expert, and I'm fascinated to hear your opinion on crowdfunding. So, Indiegogo. There's this new one, I forget. There's actually so there's 2 angles. Let's talk about both of these. There's crowdfunding in the sense of raising capital, where you actually are selling shares, selling equity in exchange. And then there's the Indiegogo, what's the other big one? Kickstarter, where you're not selling actual shares, you're giving them something, the first product or a name in the movie. Let's talk about those 2, because those are massive.
On the product side, on almost any field, there used to be gatekeepers, okay?
Yes.
Unless you could get a big factory to make this, unless you could convince some mystery people that you can't get to, a product can't come to market.
Yes, like TV.
How amazing. Like, I'll give you the first example of Kickstarter from 20 years ago or 30 years ago. I'm getting old with my example. George Harrison of the Beatles read a script to Time Bandits, and he loved it and said, well, no studio will make it. We can't get the money. And he goes, I'll buy 1 ticket for $10 million, right? He basically funded the movie, and that's how he got the movie making. He wanted to see that movie. Well, that's what Kickstarter is. It's connecting your market. And by the way, if you get enough visibility for your idea and it's on that platform and nobody wants to buy it, you've just saved yourself a ton of work.
Yeah.
Because you now know there wasn't the market that you thought.
Yeah.
On the equity side, the Jobs Act now empowers in this country the ability for people to risk their capital up to certain constraints to get equity in businesses. And I pioneered one of those that did $150 million in top line its first 12 months.
Huh.
Right? So the scale that you can do is very, very, very large. And I think this becomes a new alternative, because let's do the macro side of this that nobody's talking about. A unicorn, as you know, is a privately funded startup valued at over $1 billion.
Yes.
Okay? And right now we have the biggest herd of unicorns.
Yes.
They're not even endangered species.
Yeah.
Okay? There's also never been enough IPO window, initial public offering, to take all that backlog.
Yep.
So the first one of those that comes out and stumbles, that window shuts, and there's no way to fund these companies that are still great companies, but the public markets won't be there for them. And I'm a public CEO, so I know the challenges, which means various other forms of funding are going to have to fill that gap.
Yes.
So the idea of crowdfunding is the most Zen-like approach to business, because the success is controlled by no one and everyone at the same time.
Yes.
So you then take in a cryptocurrency and you suddenly take governments and regulations and borders out of it, and you
Bitcoin.
and you suddenly have a whole new world order where there's no one artificially constraining trade, innovation, or human progress.
Yeah.
Wild when you wrap your heads around it, because it really challenges our assumptions of, you know, how the world is.
Yeah. Yeah, I think that without a doubt, what you said earlier, you can get capital now. I was talking to Adam Braun yesterday from Pencils of Promises, a charity he started, and he's a White House speaker, and he was saying the good news also is oftentimes especially as you're starting out, you don't need as much capital as you think. It can make you a little bloated. It'll make you a little lazy. So you go out there, you raise a realistic amount, and then step by step you get ahead. Let's talk about healthcare. Somebody says, how can the healthcare industry be fixed? And I read that 70% of healthcare costs in the United States are lifestyle related. They're fixable through not drinking so much soda, moving, not letting kids eat junk food in cafeterias.
So wearables are going to be a huge piece of this.
And you're wearing one now.
So I'm wearing a wearable. One of my employees, his child has what used to be called childhood diabetes. I don't know what they call it now.
Yeah,
It's type 1 or whatever.
Yep.
And imagine living in fear that your kid's at school and somebody gives them a candy bar or an ice cream or you don't know, whatever. Well, now he can just wear a little thumb tip, fingertip on his finger, and mom and dad can see on their smartphone app the blood sugar and call a teacher or, alert. I mean, peace of mind, whatever. My parents are elderly, have motion detectors in their home. If they don't get out of their bed by 10 a.m., someone checks on them. I mean, so there's huge new ways to look at distance care of knowing, everything about the next generation of these will do, various tests of the sweat and of blood sugar.
Well, I have a friend working on one for dehydration.
Google has the where I can't think, the contact lens that checks your diabetes level, so no more pricking the finger. I mean, it's getting into science fiction. When I was a kid, one of the biggest movies with Raquel Welch was called Fantastic Voyage, where they shrink a submarine and they have to go in and unclog somebody's artery, right? But if you wait too long, the submarine's going to get big and the guy's going to blow up. There's now a nano company that delivers medicine that way, a nano robot that you can control remotely and tell it where to swim, deliver the medication just there, and then, poop it out. But stop and think of how many billions are spent on drugs that don't make it through clinical trial because the drug goes through your whole body and has side effects.
Yes.
That if you just put the drug on the one spot, how many of those drugs would now be valuable again? So healthcare, I'm not a science guy. I don't have the background. But some of the stuff that's coming in my deal flow that I'm not bright enough to say yes to invest in or not to blows my mind on the potential of where people are thinking.
Yeah.
And it's quality of life.
For those of you watching, some of you are going to come to the point when you're an investor, it's going to be the best time in the next 1, 2, 10 years to be an investor because this early wave of how many things have we said on this talk right now, whether it be crowdfunding, nanotechnology, the music industry, solar paint. I haven't even heard of this. It's like, Joel Salatin was here. He's really my first mentor when I was 19, and he's been a huge disruptor in the food system. And he said to me earlier this year, he said, Tai, he's about 60-something. I don't know how people sleep with all the cool opportunities there are. Like, and everyone else is saying the sky's falling, but he's going, this is the best of times.
I wish I could clone myself.
Yeah.
I mean, there's so many things where I go, wow, if I wasn't involved in what I was doing, I wish I could put all my energy into X or Y or Z. And that's when I realized that, at the end of the day, you try to figure out your purpose in life. And my purpose for this third of my life is really to encourage and empower people to live an entrepreneurial life. Because it is such a satisfying, yes, it's going to be hardship, but you know what? If you never felt pain, you can't enjoy pleasure. Okay?
Yes.
If it just came easy, you wouldn't relish what you've achieved. And even when it's tough, and I talk to entrepreneurs all the time, that they're having a really tough time and they see this obstacle ahead of them, I'm like, time out. Just take a moment and look over your shoulder at how far you came.
Yeah.
And then the rest of the journey doesn't seem so hard. You don't need to know all the pieces. Work backwards from the goal. The difference between a dream and a goal is just assigning a deadline.
Yes.
The process is the same. Everything great in life was achieved by somebody that followed the same process. I just put it on paper.
Yeah.
And no one got to lead a company, lead a country, or change the world by following the path of somebody else.
Yeah.
So by definition, you're going into uncharted waters.
Yeah.
Congratulations. That's what's exciting.
Yeah. Let's do a few more questions. I don't want to keep you too long, but I want, by the way, everyone listening, trust me, I don't recommend books that I haven't read. I think I have 3 copies of your book, believe it or not, in this house. So I'm contributing to getting to bestseller standpoint. Let's talk about it here in the front of the book. The book forward is written by Reid Hoffman, who
not Reed Hastings, Reed Hoffman,
PayPal,
founder of
LinkedIn, Zynga, first money to Zuckerberg for Facebook. Smartest human being I've ever met.
Yeah, tell me about him and what you learned from this multi-billionaire innovator. In addition to him obviously being very talented, what are things that he does different that myself and somebody watching this can go, we could do that, and by doing that and adopting that perspective, we would see revolution in our lives?
Here's one thing that he does that is just so awe-inspiring to me. Here's a man worth billions and billions of dollars who has done it again and again. And again, when you look at the companies that he's invested, Airbnb, I mean, real early on, there's not a list of failures. He's just nailing it the next thing time and time again. But he never says he's the center of the attention. He hires somebody that he thinks would be better to be the CEO of LinkedIn, not him. He has somebody else drive the train. And he does this again and again, very humbly. And he was wanting to be a college professor. He wasn't out to be the Titan of Wall Street. But he realized how the world was changing. He realized the network effect. You know, he realized how that would affect different things. And everybody looked at LinkedIn and like, wait a second, there's other job apps out, there's other things. They didn't understand that this would replace, in my life, it replaced contacts.
Oh, yeah.
Contacts go out of whack in 2 seconds. Now, somebody asked me the other day, do you know anybody at World Wrestling Federation? I'm like, what do I know anybody at World? I go on LinkedIn and, oh my God, one of my direct reports from another gig is now like the head honcho there. You would never know where people go.
Yeah.
So LinkedIn is really the lifeblood of world business. But now take it from another side. What data do they have access? We're talking about big data.
Oh, yeah.
Do they know what cities are losing jobs and what companies are gaining jobs? Would they know what companies' value in the stock market is going to go down before anybody else?
Yeah.
Would they know what nation state's in trouble? It's amazing, and they can now plot that and look at it on maps and just genius new insights. So you want to get into some game that gives you access to data, because that is your only competitive advantage.
Yes.
You know something either before the rest of the world or that the rest of the world doesn't know.
Yeah.
And time again. So I'll give you an example from my own life that just drove me crazy. Because when data doesn't respond the way you assume, there's something up. So let's go back in the time machine. Napster's out there. Everybody's stealing all the music.
Yes.
1999, 2000, whatever. They steal billions of songs. The next year, some new songs come out, but they already stole everything from the 20th century, but the amount of stealing stays the same. The third year, there's only a few more songs. You know, somebody comes out with a new song. You know, Norah Jones has a new album. The amount of stealing is the same, if not bigger. It doesn't make sense. You've already stolen it. So I looked deeper in the data. The same person is stealing the same song over and over again. They realize it will always be in the ether, in the cloud. Why own it? Why have it? Why store it? Why know where it is? I got to make another CD for somebody's wedding. I can steal it again. So at that moment, we knew 15 years before that iTunes was destined to fail because what people wanted was a subscription.
Yes.
And if that's the same for music, that idea of DVDs doesn't make sense.
Yes.
You want access to...
Which is what Netflix has moved to,
Right.
and Apple's moving to.
And by the way, Netflix didn't, remember, they launched a DVD company, didn't keep their secret, ooh, don't let anybody know what we're doing. They named it Netflix.
Yeah.
They didn't name it, we're going to mail you DVDs to
Yeah.
your mailbox, okay? So everybody that knew the data could see that we go to a sharing economy. So
Yes.
let me ask you another silly question. We're sitting here, beautiful home, beautiful day. Do you own an electric drill?
It's a good question. I have no idea. Maybe.
Okay.
Maybe.
So most people do.
Yeah.
In your lifetime, that drill will drill for 13 minutes.
Really?
Okay, here's the IKEA bookcase. Okay? So it doesn't make sense to own one.
Yes.
If there was software that delivered in the morning, picked it up in the afternoon, the sharing economy.
Yes.
Well, that's just like music. You don't need to own as many things. Your car spends most of its life not driving. It's
Yes.
parked. If there was software to make it always available, people in this town, Brock Pierce has figured out in LA,
Yeah.
it
What's
is
the name of that?
it is cheaper for him to Uber.
The other. There's an app too, also where you rent your car out.
Oh, there's tons
When
of
you-
them.
yeah.
But so the whole idea is we're moving back to this digital stuff. Having access to things is more valuable than having
Yes.
them, which changes what size house people need. Real estate. Is it renting versus owning?
Yes.
You know, I have a friend that looked at the data of the increased number of women freezing their eggs. You say, what does that have to do with real estate? Well, that has to do with women are delaying starting families,
Yes.
which means they're not getting houses, which means rental will be bigger for a longer period of time.
Wow.
Build rental units, not more housing, which is why after the housing bubble collapsed, there should be this huge shortage of houses and a huge boom, and there isn't.
Yeah.
Look at the data.
Yeah, the data tells you, there's a book by a future trend expert years ago. Her name was Faith Popcorn. I'm not sure if she's still writing, but
I work with her.
Oh, yeah. And she wrote a book, and I remember reading it when I lived on a farm in Virginia, and I was 19 or 20, and she said, the world's going to move. The data is showing the world's moving to cocooning. So she said it used to be you had a phone in the home, and whenever people wanted to call you, it rang right in the middle of your home. Then somebody came up with a more cocooning idea where people could protect themselves. It was an answering machine. Then after answering machines, it evolved to voicemail. Well, you had pagers. And then finally, and this is before it's in 2003, I went to Czech Republic. And I had a guide there, this guy Daniel, and he was always on his phone, texting. And I remember going, what are you doing? And he said, I text people. I said, why don't you call? Well, he said, well, in Czech Republic, it's very expensive to call. They didn't have as cheap of... And I remember thinking, that's nuts. I'll always call. It's just so much easier. But there again, travel is something we haven't talked about, but not only reading, not only going through the exercises that you have, that you guys are going to get access to by emailing or tweeting out to Jay and just mentioning my name, this workbook to become more creative, but also physically getting out there. And the founder of Red Bull, he came up with the idea because he traveled all the time to Japan and found this syrupy drink and realized that he could combine it with energy and become this mega billionaire. So what do you think on traveling and going to conference? I tell people, go to conferences and seminars and get out with a new group of people. Be eclectic. Don't just go to a seminar always in your industry, because there's ancillary industries that will give you data ahead of time. What do you think on that?
100%. So I've been fortunate to work all over the world and been to dozens and 40, 50 countries. And you see the whole world isn't the way you assumed was malleable.
Right.
We assume everything's this way. Look at these people running for office that, I think the majority of the members of Congress don't have passports. I mean, scary.
Really?
Yeah. So
Yeesh. Well, that explains a lot.
It absolutely does. They think everything works the way hometown does. And you suddenly go to things and you see the second you take out, travel isn't about seeing different things. It's about seeing things differently. So you get a new perspective, and it may be something that they do there. So in small nations that have a small footprint, they can put up 3G, 4G, 5G in an afternoon, and everybody in Singapore is on 5G.
Yes.
Right? So how does that always-on society work? And go, wow, when that catches up here, those same needs will be here. So South Korea, Japan, Singapore, very mobile-centric. When you look at the roles of families and transportation and how they're solved in different places, and you suddenly start connecting the dots, there are endless opportunities, because knowledge is available freely, but it doesn't always travel at the same speed that it should. So you can be that embodiment, so you can take that idea and do it. A really, obscure example that comes to mind is ancient Greece. They had olive presses. You put the olives in and you make olive oil. Been around thousands of years. About 1,500 years ago, somebody said, why don't we take an olive press and put grapes in it? We can make wine faster instead of the stomping, right? It took them 1,500 years. They're not the swiftest people.
We humans are slow.
But what happened was, suddenly everybody was making Riesling wines in Germany. Everybody had because you need less people, right?
Yeah.
Too much wine, what happens? Everybody goes broke.
Right, and a lot of alcoholics.
So there's a bunch of former wine presses that you can get really cheap. Gutenberg didn't sit there and have this Doc Brown discovery of, oh my God, the printing press. He saw he could buy these used presses really cheap and said, wait a second, this movable type idea I'm playing with, what if I put it in a press? His press was a wine press. It wasn't that he sat there like Da Vinci creating something that we're taught. So the more you can expose yourself to other tools, other ways of thinking, other stuff, the richer you are. It's the one investment nobody can take from you.
Yeah.
Okay? Invest in yourself. And for most of the millennials,
I love
your
this.
knowledge is between your ears. Your value will be with you.
Absolutely.
Take the risks before you worry about summer camp and braces and college tuition for the next generation, and explore it. And it turns out the biggest sector that is traveling today is millennials, not senior citizens.
Yeah. Well, senior citizens, a lot of touring in mobile homes right around where they're from. Let's end with the subject that I think is controversial. And of course, you've been an entrepreneur and been an executive and been a top consultant and an author, and you've done it all. And you've also done stuff with universities and continue to do that. What are the disruptions that need to be made in the education system? What you see here is the disruption. Yesterday, I was live streaming through new apps, Periscope and Meerkat. I had 7,300 people just pop in. I just flipped them on that's a big classroom. And we were talking about ideas in business. What's good about the modern education system specifically? I mean, we can talk about junior high, elementary, and high school. Let's talk about higher education. LeBron James just gave $40 million to educate 1,100 kids. And somebody said, I read a little article that said, that's great and compassionate, but what's wrong with our system that $40 million only educates 1,100 kids? Peter Thiel, on the other hand, I was just reading an article where he paid people not to go to college, and they did a follow-up on how these kids are doing. And he's produced, I can't remember how many millionaires these young kids in relatively like 2 to 5 years. So my position is that college is a tool. Tools are always neutral. A chainsaw is always neutral. If you drop it on your toe, it's your worst enemy. If you use it to cut down a tree. So obviously there's a place for academia. We need it. But what are the disruptions that need to be made using data and personalization and all these things? I don't want to lead the question, but
Yeah,
what's your take?
Huge source for disruption for a very simple thing. Let's go back 20,000 years to Ugg in the cave. He sat there and drew in the sand to teach the other ones, here's how we're going to, teach. The school marm of the Old West, the Little House on the Prairie, there's one person in front giving one set of information to a divergent group of people.
Yes.
That can comprehend it at different speeds. And so you're either dumbing down and making the brightest students bored and hating school, okay? And, it doesn't work. And it was designed for conformity to raise you to know enough reading and enough math to go to a factory.
Yeah.
Okay? Or to work on a farm and be able to know how many cows there were or whatever it was. That era is gone. So since we have the ability to personalize and to get everybody to their maximum level, we need to start using technology to engage and enlighten, okay? It's amazing that with very little instructions, almost every kid knows how to use a PlayStation or an Xbox and can play really complicated and I used to make video games for 10 years of my career with 9 million controls and buttons, and it's amazing. So they can learn, they have a quest for learn. What have we done to stifle that out? Why are we filling kids with pills to have them sit still when maybe their best way of thinking is rocking and running around? So I think we need to really examine why we're teaching what we're teaching and doesn't match today's needs. All these kids come out of college with massive debt and are never taking a single course in managing money, finances, career, resume. I didn't find out what a resume was until I got right out of college and go, oh, what's that? What do I do?
Right.
And I made one that showed a foot going through a door and said, if I could just get my foot in your door, I'd be a shoo-in.
Huh.
Thinking that, and I got a job. But
I like that. That's disruptive resume.
I didn't know what it was supposed to be on there. Hadn't achieved anything yet.
Do you see any disruptive? You've got Lynda, you've got Coursera, you have YouTube. What do you think's the next tech ed, the next education?
Khan Academy. There's tons. I can't pick who the winner is.
Yeah.
But
or maybe there won't be a winner. Maybe society will be the winner. People will.
Here's the interesting stuff. The largest volunteer effort in the history of mankind is Wikipedia.
Yeah, Wikipedia. Yep.
The greatest collection of mankind's knowledge, self-policing for no selfish aim.
Yep.
It's amazing, okay? And if we can achieve that, And one of my biggest failings that I'm proud of is, I was trying to convince them to allow me to put ads on in the early days, and we'll all make billions, and here's what you can do, and da-da-da. And they turned me down. And they were right. They kept it pure.
You were going to commercialize Wikipedia.
Absolutely.
Yeah.
Okay, that many eyeballs?
Yeah.
I was drooling. But, Jimmy was right. If we can do that and get that knowledge out there, the next step of connecting the dots so people know how to find it, how to use it, and how to use it to empower and change their lives, whether for money or not.
Yeah.
You'll read about how I was tapped by the president to get the internet into the nation's schools, and we did it. Every classroom got wired without $1 of taxpayer money.
Wow.
18 months.
Sponsored type? Yeah.
Well, we had this wacky idea. Why don't we do an auction like you do at charity things and auction off a bunch of stuff on the internet?
Huh.
And so Pierre wrote the auction, which he improved on, and that became eBay.
Wow.
So charity work turns into some amazing things. Brands associating with causes. Education is one of those core fundamental things that we all owe it, even if you don't have kids. Okay? Even if you don't have kids, you got to be saying to yourself, do you want, when you're in that emergency room, to know that doctor knows what he's doing?
Yes.
That pilot knows, the car driver? I mean, we're part of society.
It behooves us all to be part of it. Yeah.
We raise all of us, and ignorance destabilizes society. Unemployment destabilizes society. The fighting that we see on most of the land isn't because people hate this one or that one. It's because of frustration, lack of opportunity,
Yes.
lack of knowledge, lack of communication.
Joseph Stiglitz won a Nobel Prize, and he wrote a book called Creating a Learning Economy. And he says, in his research, as a Nobel Prize winning economist, they thought that what made, let's say, the Philippines or Bangladesh or India or Brazil less affluent than quote-unquote first world countries was access to resources, access to capital. And what he believes is that really it was the ability to learn. Now that could be, of course, related to resources, but it was knowledge. And this thing that I'm part of that I call the knowledge society, we've been in an information society, but we now have to, knowledge is information in action. And this book, and as we kind of wrap up, and for those of you, I know we didn't get to answer everybody's questions, but this was usually it's me talking on today's call, but this was too good of an opportunity to pass up with Jay. And as we close here, just one last question. In all those things that you've learned, whether it be a CEO, an investor, and now an author, if you had one more day on the planet and you want to be a great father, and you wanted to leave just a paragraph for your children, the best encapsulated knowledge. Obviously you can't, there's a lot, but what is that most important thing that we use as the guiding light, and then of course we focus on all these other things too?
Live a life of purpose. Why are you here? What mark can you do? How can you help others? And the more that you can figure out what that is, the more you'll get out of every day and every moment and every interaction with another person. Yes, you have needs to be met. Yes, you have wants that you'd like to have. But there's nothing more rewarding than when you say, I can make a difference and I'm doing it. Nothing moves me more. It's not about dollars, it's not about this. When I hear from a reader that something in this helped them change their business or change their life or stick with it another day, that's a wonderful feeling that tells me I'm making a difference to somebody.
Yeah.
And that's all we're here for.
Yeah. Well, thanks so much. So everybody that's in this program, this accelerator, I want you, if you just recently gotten in the program, I want you to go out and get this book. Now I'm going to sign the next book we're doing here while we're here. Just happen to have it right here. So this is Peter Diamandis.
Who wrote on the back of my book.
Is recommended. It's a small world of smart people. Hopefully it'll be a bigger world, but this is called Bold. Okay, you need to pick up this book and be done with this. President Bill Clinton gave praise to this. Jay, you, I'm sure, know Peter Diamandis. He's the founder of many things. One of them's X Prize. I was just working with them. And Bugatti, of all things, when I drove a Bugatti the other day, and it was with
X Prize and Bugatti working together. So how do you go big, create wealth, and impact? This is a New York Times best-selling author. He wrote Abundance, Peter Diamandis. So make sure you pick up this book. Now, one other thing. We have gotten you here the ability to get this workbook. Is it a PDF?
Yeah, it's PDF. I'll send you.
PDF.
It's 40 pages. Just go to jsamit.com, Jaysamit. Maybe you'll put a link up.
Yeah, we can put a link up. You can email.
And it's just to help you work through the exercises to get the most value out of the book. It's an easy, fun read.
Yes.
But there's a lot of dense knowledge in there. So taking the break to do some of the exercises will help you really formulate your vision for your own life.
Yes. So to close out today, I want you to answer below the number one thing that you're going to do today to take on this disrupting mentality. And when I say disrupting, I mean that in a positive way. Because I really believe you can look, not to be cliche, but this half full, half empty glass cliche is so applicable to this. The world's changing. It's disrupting whether you want it or not. Everything you're doing. I read, there's a guy, Stephen Johnson, Where Good Ideas Come From, another amazing author, and he says, things are becoming obsolete at the rate of about 10% of everything you know becomes obsolete in about 18 to 24 months. Wow. Especially if you're in a real specialized industry. It's not that the knowledge doesn't work, it's that the world doesn't need it anymore. We don't need people right now that make horse carriages unless you're Amish. So you must adopt this mentality. I want you to write about that. Maybe write below where you've been too pessimistic, you see the world changing, you're not seeing the opportunities. Number two thing is to go to jsamit.com and pick up, get your copy of his PDF that I just mentioned my name. For those of you that I didn't get to answer your question, I am now, make sure you're downloading Periscope and Meerkat, because those of you in this program, I'm almost going on every day. So I've found that it's a little bit, on these twice a month calls, I'm not being able to get to everybody's questions one-on-one, and I want to be able to answer your questions that are in this premium program. So if you go to Periscope and Meerkat, you download it. It's just my name, Tai Lopez. I pop in there. I'm going to pop in there a little bit later today. I'll be on there, and if you just mention in the chat, Meerkat is a little better because my Periscope fills up real fast. In Meerkat, just mention I'm in the accelerator, and I'll answer your questions first. So giving you access 3 or 4 times a week now to ask me questions. So if I didn't get to yours, just because I wanted to give Jay maximum time, and I'm sure you'll appreciate that, because this is the cutting edge stuff right here, the disruption of things that don't work. It's going to make a lot of people wealthy, and even more importantly, it's going to make a lot of people live a life of purpose that haven't been able to do that. So thanks so much. I'll see you in 2 weeks with Bold by Peter Diamandis. Thank you.
Thank you.
That was awesome.